Welcome to The Pulse, where we delve deep into the issues and ideas that are shaping the future of education. I'm your host, Rick Cerncy, Superintendent of the Putnam County School District, and each week we'll be talking to teachers, administrators, and other experts in the field about the latest trends, best practices, and most pressing concerns in education. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just someone who cares about education, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the pulse. Well, welcome back. This is Rick Cerncy, the Superintendent of the Putnam County School District, and I'm very pleased today to have on our podcast two distinguished guests, and correction, make that three distinguished guests. For the first time, I think we've actually had a dog as a guest, and this is going to be quite a show today, and I'm looking forward to it. But with me, we have Kimberly Simmons and Diana Drew, and they both have very important positions within the district regarding mental health and student services. So let's just take a minute, Kim and Diana, introduce yourself and what you do, and just anything you want to say to introduce yourself, and then we'll get started and talk about Jazzy. So Kim, lead us off.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Simmons. I'm the mental wellness clinical supervisor. And I'm glad to have Jazzy. We'll say that. She's going to be a great addition to our therapy team. I'm excited.
Very good. Diana?
I'm Diana Drew. I'm the Director of Student Services. This is my 29th year here in Putnam County. So I've served the county in a lot of different positions, from teaching to administration in schools. And I'm now very happy to be at the district office in this role so I can help serve the students of Putnam County.
Well, and also introduce Jazzy.
I can do that.
Yeah.
This is Jazzy. She is a 15-month-old golden doodle, and I've had her since she was 5 months old, and we've been on this journey for her to become a certified therapy dog. And we've completed the journey, and I'm sure we'll talk about how that goes.
Very good. 29 years, and Kimberly, how many years?
This is year 7.
Year 7.
With the school district, yes.
Very good. So you're a veteran now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's really good to have both of you, and I can't be more pleased the fact that, first of all, we have people in place to provide therapy for our children, and we've talked about this a lot, especially since the pandemic, and the needs of our children have become really exacerbated because of the pandemic and just everything going on in life. And as we know, when kids are not okay, it's difficult for them to learn. So I think it's really neat to have a unique tool, if you will, in Jazzy to provide that, therapy when students are having issues. And Diana, talk to us kind of what the theory of using a therapy dog. What's behind all that?
Okay. Well, I've been researching it for years, actually. I had seen it used in some other areas, not in person, but, reading about it, hearing about it. And I decided that was just a subject of real interest to me. So I just kept reading and researching. And when I was at Jenkins Middle School as the principal, we actually had a support person that was there from the Department of Education. And we got to talking about therapy animals, animal-assisted therapy, how that could be utilized in schools. And she was real passionate about it, so we really got that conversation going. And I was just thinking about her the other day. Her name is Victoria Cody, and I need to email her and contact her and let her know where I am with all of this. So with the research, I just got more and more interested in how a therapy dog, obviously dogs make people happy, right? So how can we utilize that in a school setting with kids that are going through traumatic things, or they have, certain behavioral issues, or, just certain mental health issues that she could assist with.
I've seen therapy dogs used. Our local funeral home, I've seen they have a therapy dog there. And again, dogs are able to make that connection that humans may have difficulty doing. So, Kim, from your point of view as a mental health therapist, and how do you really measure the effectiveness of a therapy dog, and in all of your experience and research? What are some outcomes we could see from that?
Yeah, so I think, using a therapy dog, you're going to have that emotional bridge, with students. And so once you create that openness and that bridge for a therapist or even just, a handler like Diana to be able to connect with a student, I think the effectiveness is shown through improvement in grades, improvement in mood, less behavioral issues, even just being able to calm themselves down emotionally, maybe even in the moment. Or just have them, have a chance to connect and have that connectiveness with our therapy dog. We all need that, some sort of connection. And sometimes it's hard to do that with, your peers even, or your teachers. So it'll be a good bridge.
Well, and I know, and that's interesting you use the terminology of bridge, because I know it's always important to develop trust with students or where they can trust who they're talking to. And it's automatically, when you have a dog there, it's automatically, I'm sure you just trust the dog, or there's that bridge where
Yes.
you're going to feel like you can open up and all. So,
Yeah.
if parents had concerns, what are some, I know you normally have to have like parent consent for therapy. Mm-hmm. How does that work with a therapy dog?
So my message to parents with therapy dogs is just to know and understand where we started. So when I began training her, we did extensive training through a program here that actually it's a couple that lives in Callaway, and I want to give them a shout out because they're just so amazing. Mr. Bob and Kay Pierce were her trainers and mine, because they train the handler just as much as they train the dog. So she completed a Star Puppy program. She completed a Canine Good Citizen program. And even though she's now certified, we're still in the middle of a different program. So it comes with a lot of temperament training and obedience training. Not that she's perfect, because she's still a puppy, but a lot of training is involved so that when we go into a school, she knows what she should and shouldn't do. So we want parents to know also that there will be like a consent that's sent out, an electronic consent that will go out to the families. And if they're not comfortable, then they can let us know and they
Kind
can
of an
opt
opt-out.
out of that.
Yeah.
Right. We know that there are some kids that have had, like a bad interaction with a dog before and they have an aversion. So we understand that. And not everybody is going to want to interact with her. And we certainly will not force that upon anybody.
I've worked a lot with, law enforcement, and, a lot of the dogs that come in the past that have, like sniffed for drugs and that type of thing. And one thing I recall from that is those kind of dogs get exhausted pretty quick. I guess you can only sniff so much and you have to go take a nap or whatever. I mean, is that the same with the therapy dog? Is there, you kind of have to measure how much they can do?
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about the handler watching the body language and just the behaviors of the therapy dog, because they can get overstimulated. That's why when we start her in the schools, we have some policy that has been submitted to the school board, and that's our last piece of the puzzle. So when that's approved, she can go in and start seeing kids. So we look for different signals from our dogs that tell us that they're tired or they're stressed or this is too much or I'm done for the day. And it's our responsibility as a handler to cue in on those signals and make sure that we understand when they're engaged and ready and when they need a break. So it's really important.
So, Kim, what do you see, and I've probably asked you this before, but what are you seeing now, some of the wellness challenges with our students just globally? And we talk about the pandemic and we talk about school violence and all that kind of stuff, but what are you seeing, on the front line with our students now that we could all be tuned into?
Well, I think there's a big rise in anxiety, and we know it starts at a young age, but I think there are a lot more students who are experiencing anxiety symptoms, maybe, partly due to COVID, like you said, and then the other part is there's a lot of expectation, on our students, and rightfully so. We want them to be successful, but sometimes that comes along with, mental health challenges and symptoms of anxiety, and I think, Jazzy, will be a great addition to that as well, and helping some of those students because, we know that sensory-wise, whenever we can connect, whether it's petting a dog or grounding yourself, it actually reduces cortisol levels and increases dopamine in our brain. And so that's a beautiful thing to be able to have Jazzy help us with that. And once again, sometimes a student may not actually come out and tell a therapist that they're having those symptoms, but we know and we can visibly see those things when they interact with Jazzy or when, they have the chance to make that emotional bridge and connection.
Right.
So what can parents do at home? First of all, one thing I hear a lot about are that students these days have too much screen time and stay up too late and all that kind of stuff. What can parents do frontline to really reduce that anxiety that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with validation, and validating your children, letting them know that you see them working hard, you see them, putting in that extra effort and encouragement. And the other part of it is, structure and routine. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but it helps with anxiety and that fear of the unknown and what's to come. And so those are some little things that can be implemented. But also, like we talked about, grounding techniques. So making sure that you are present with your child and that you guys both are interacting and grounded to the present moment. Because if they, imitate some of your anxiety and the things that you're worried about, then it's also going to affect them. So those are just some little tidbits. But exercise helps too. So, move a muscle, change a thought.
Yeah, so. That's good for all of us. It's good advice. I need to do a little more of that, like everybody, But so what are our next steps? I know you talked about Jazzy as soon as we pass the policy and all. So
yes, sir.
What do you see happening in the next month or two with Jazzy, and what's kind of your plan of action?
Well, she's certified through the Alliance of Therapy Dogs, and that's a national organization, and you have to pass an evaluation in order to be certified. So she's done with all of that. We just got our certificate of insurance for an additional insurance policy that we have to have in place. So the last piece of the puzzle is the policy that was submitted to the board, and at the board meeting, we'll find out if that is approved. And as soon as that's approved, then she can start seeing kids in groups of kids. So we'd like to start small and then get bigger. Obviously, I have other jobs that I have to do. I can't run around with my dog all day, every day. I have other responsibilities. So we will have a calendar possibly that administrators and counselors can look at to see what days and times that we as a team are available to go and help kids in schools. So I think the plan is to start with some one-on-one therapy with kids that need it. Maybe they've gone through a traumatic event or they're just having a particularly bad time and they need some attention. So we can do that. And then we'll start with maybe some small groups. Maybe there's a small group of kids that need some grief therapy, and she can go in and see small groups of kids. And then after we're successful with that, then I can start taking her into classrooms and possibly letting kids even read with her. There's even research out there that says if kids sit down and read to dogs, you've probably seen in the news where kids go to like the Humane Society and places like that, and they sit down and they read to the dogs. It helps the dogs and it helps the child because it's improving their fluency. So you can even attach it to increased testing scores.
Wow. Well, I can see Jazzy's really increasing her comprehension through all this. Well, this has really been neat. Any final words, just going forward, anything you want to make sure our audience knows about Jazzy and just, dog therapy in general that we haven't talked about?
I'm just really excited to get started. And, we've been working on this for over a year. I got her from a family when she was about 5 months old, and a really great family that did a great job with raising her and doing all that initial training. And that made it so easy for me to continue. And that's really the reason that I got her, was to do this job. And when I spent some time with her at the family's house before we took her home, I knew she was the right dog for the job. So I'm just excited. Well,
I just want to compliment both of you. And, of course, I know you're recently in this position, but you've been, working at it for some time. And Kim, you've been in this position how many years?
Well, this position, this will be my second year, but I was a therapist before in the school district for 5 years. So,
Well, I just want to tell you, I really appreciate the fact that, both of you are so in tune to our students' mental health and their well-being. And, we always talk about test scores and, student achievement and all that. But you know what? It really is about we need to raise healthy children, and they need to be okay and grow up as functioning, productive adults. And we can't ignore those things that really hinder them. So I just applaud both of you for what you're doing, and it definitely is making a difference. And I can't wait to see what happens with Jazzy as she goes in our schools. It's probably going to have like some assembly or something. Eventually, they're going to want to have the whole school turn out for us.
We plan to have T-shirts and trading cards and all of those things that
She'll
I've
be
been
a
able
mascot.
to pick up on there's
Yeah,
a Facebook
yeah.
group I'm in for school therapy dogs specifically, and I've gotten a lot of ideas from them. So
Well,
I'm excited.
Maybe we'll bring y'all back on after Jazzy has her introduction, and we'll see how it goes, and maybe even have some video we can share. But I know those of you out there that may want to get some information or even have Jazzy visit you at some point in time, or maybe you want to contact Kim about our therapy services. They're here to serve our kids. So definitely do that, and just look forward to seeing what the future holds for us. So thank you both for being here.
thank you.
for having
Thanks
me.
to Jazzy.
Yes.
And look forward to seeing her again soon. So thank you, and we'll see you in our next podcast.